Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera kepada Dr. Nuradli Rizwan Shah Muhammad Dali. Ini adalah assignment individu yang disediakan oleh saya, Ahmad Amir Rashid, nombor metrik 1230734 untuk kelas Money Market and Capital, MFA 3023. Untuk tugasan kali ini, saya telah convert dokumen assignment kepada explainer audiovisual menggunakan notebook LM untuk menilai sebuah equity patuh syariah yang terkemuka di Bursa Malaysia.
Sebelum kita bermula, satu notis penting. Analisis dan maklumat saham ini disediakan untuk tujuan pembelajaran dan pendidikan sahaja. Ia sama sekali bukan merupakan nasihat kewangan, pelaburan, percukaian atau undang-undang. Prestasi masa lalu tidak menjamin pulangan masa depan. Pasaran saham melibatkan risiko tinggi dan anda mungkin mengalami kerugian modal. Sila rujuk kepada penasihat kewangan bertauliah sebelum membuat sebarang keputusan pelaburan sebenar.
Alright, let's look at our diagnostic framework for today. We're going to cover the introduction and corporate profile, a 50-day technical analysis, fundamental health and valuation, the macroeconomic ecosystem, and finally, our strategic investment verdict.
Section 1. Introduction and Corporate Profile.
So, Solarvest, they have mapped out an absolutely incredible growth story. They were established back in 2012 in Petaling Jaya, starting out as just a local supplier of solar PV systems. But look at where they are right now. They've evolved into this massive Asia-Pacific green energy hub, successfully engineering over 2,000 megawatts of renewable energy projects. That's a huge amount of power. And this regional expansion into places like Taiwan, Vietnam, and the Philippines, it definitely didn't happen by accident. It's being actively fueled by favorable government policies, a rapidly rising global environmental consciousness, and of course, surging enterprise demand for green tech solutions.
Now, to actually deliver that massive capacity, Solarvest relies on a vertically integrated operational engine. Basically, they don't just do one thing. They provide comprehensive engineering, procurement, construction, and commissioning, what we call EPCC solutions, for literally everyone, from residential homes all the way up to massive solar farms. But it doesn't stop there. They also deploy advanced battery energy storage systems to actually capture and regulate all that power. Add to that their long-term operations, maintenance, and direct renewable energy generation, they basically own the entire life cycle of green energy.
Section 2. 50-day technical analysis.
So, let's look at the road conditions. Over our 50-day observation period, we tracked the stock's journey from 2 ringgit and 39 cents up to 2 ringgit and 90 cents. And we identified 3 really distinct behavioral phases. We've got an initial phase of aggressive appreciation, followed by a longer stretch of narrow consolidation, and then finally a phase of support and stability.
Let's unpack that first phase. From day 1 to day 11, the stock experienced this massive 17.2% price surge, jumping from 239 to 280. So why the sudden jump? Well, it was driven by some pretty powerful catalysts. On the micro level, Solarvest announced expedited deliveries for large-scale solar projects. Plus, they secured major corporate green power program projects to supply top-tier clients like Micron Technology and Texas Instruments. Then, on the macro level, you had fossil fuel volatility, specifically linked to conflicts in the Middle East, which really drove up traditional energy costs. This made Solarvest's solar and battery solutions look incredibly competitive.
Now, after a sharp climb like that, a stock usually needs to catch its breath, right? And that's exactly what happened from day 12 to 36. We see this narrow band sideways movement between 2.67 and 2.90. In technical terms, we call this an accumulation zone. Essentially, buyers and sellers reach this temporary, low-volatility equilibrium. It's like a waiting room. This is where institutional investors were methodically building up their long positions. They were absorbing supply without drastically pushing the price up, just patiently waiting for the next macro trigger.
And that brings us to phase 3. From day 37 to 51, the stock established a highly defensible support floor right at 2 ringgit and 90 cents. Even though it peaked briefly at 3.01 on day 48, it kept coming back and finding stability at that 290 mark. The crucial takeaway here is that this consistent ability to hold the line, it strongly indicates sustained institutional conviction. It shows solidifying investor faith in the asset's underlying value.
Section 3. Fundamental health and valuation.
All right, let's pop the hood and dive into this specific number, 35.95. This is Solarvest's price-to-earnings, or PE, ratio. What this actually means is that investors are currently paying nearly 36 ringgit for every single ringgit of earnings the company generates. That is a high premium. It demonstrates massive market confidence in their future renewable energy growth. But we have to be realistic. It's also a vulnerability. When expectations are this high, the stock price becomes super sensitive. Any failure in project execution, or even just missed earnings forecasts, could easily trigger a sharp valuation correction.
But here's where we find some balance. While that PE ratio is undeniably high, Solarvest carries a debt-to-equity ratio of just 0.52. This is their anchor. For every ringgit of equity, they only carry 52 cents of debt. Now, for a capital-intensive energy infrastructure company, one that needs to fund heavy licenses and expensive battery storage upgrades, this is a very healthy, moderate, and highly manageable risk profile. It acts as a really strong safety net beneath those soaring market expectations.
Looking closely at their management philosophy, you'll notice Solarvest has a dividend yield of exactly 0%. Now, if you're an income-seeking investor, that might sound like a bad thing, but for a growth stock, it's a strategic feature, not a bug. They're retaining 100% of their earnings and aggressively reinvesting it directly back into solar project development, business expansion, and capital expenditures. This stock is specifically tailored for long-term investors who are looking for wealth creation and capital appreciation that can outpace inflation.
Section 4. Macroeconomic Ecosystem. Let's zoom out and look at the broader weather conditions. Solarvest is actually buoyed by three really powerful macroeconomic forces right now. First, Bank Negara Malaysia's stable 3.00% overnight policy rate acts as a fantastic economic shield against rising borrowing costs. At the same time, Malaysia's robust 4 to 5% GDP growth is actively accelerating corporate energy adoption across the board. And then you add their strict Sharia-compliant status into the mix, that unlocks deep pools of Islamic liquidity through efficient sukuk financing, all while maintaining those required ethical mandates.
Section 5, Strategic Investment Verdict.
So, what does this all mean? What's the final verdict on Solarvest Holdings Berhad? Well, it rests on three very solid pillars of long-term wealth creation. First, we have proven technical resilience, marked by that verified support floor at 2.90. Second, we have a fundamental engine characterized by an aggressive 100% reinvestment strategy and a highly manageable debt profile. And finally, we have macroeconomic protection provided by stable borrowing costs and deep Islamic institutional liquidity. Synthesizing all of that, the final outlook is clear. Solarvest presents strong, long-term growth potential. It really stands as a premier vehicle for capitalizing on Malaysia's Sharia-compliant green energy transition.
Satu persoalan terakhir untuk Dr. Nuradli dan rakan-rakan akademik. Memandangkan keperluan mendesak untuk transisi tenaga global, adakah premium penilaian yang tinggi ini benar-benar berbaloi demi masa depan tenaga hijau? Terima kasih kerana menonton explainer ini.